Most people think respect is something you ask for, or demand, or earn by constantly proving yourself. But what if the opposite were true? What if the real power came from saying nothing at all? What if the loudest signal you could send was silence? Respect isn't granted to those who beg for it. It's given to those who don't need it, to those who radiate a quiet certainty, who walk into a room not to impress, but simply to exist fully, without apology. Their posture, their presence, the calm in their eyes. It tells you everything. They're not trying to be seen, and that's why you can't look away. At some point, people stop listening to words and start watching energy. And when yours says, "I don't need to convince you, my presence is enough," something fundamental shifts, not because you raised your voice, but because your energy did. Machiavelli understood something most people deny. People don't respect unlimited kindness, not when it has no boundaries. They test it, they stretch it, they take what's freely given and ask for more. Not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to explore limits. Just like gravity tests the strength of a bridge, people test the strength of your stance. And if there's no resistance, they assume there's no substance. That's why real power isn't loud. It's not dominance. It's not intimidation. It's precision. It's saying, "This is where I begin, and this is where I end," and never explaining it twice. The chase for approval is seductive because we all want to belong, to be liked, to feel accepted. But the cost? Your voice gets softer, your stance gets shakier, and suddenly your identity isn't yours anymore. It belongs to whoever you're trying to please. You'll find yourself explaining simple decisions, apologizing for invisible crimes, overthinking every message, every pause, every silence. But respect isn't born in explanation, it's born in direction. You either choose the people who see you, or you shrink for the ones who don't. And once you stop seeking validation, you start exuding value, because your presence is no longer for sale. People misread Machiavelli. They think he preached manipulation or fear. But what he really understood was this: people follow clarity. He taught the art of observation, of timing, of restraint. You don't need to dominate a room to lead it. The most respected people aren't those who speak the most, but those who say the least and mean every word. They pause before they respond. They hold eye contact without aggression. They leave space. And in that space, others reveal themselves. That's real presence. It's unshakable, not because it's loud, but because it's deeply rooted. Here's something few people say out loud. People will always test you. They want to know how far they can go, where the line is, what you'll tolerate. It's not evil, it's evolutionary. It's how humans calibrate trust, how we define the rules of engagement. But the moment they realize you don't fold under pressure, you don't flinch at disrespect, they stop testing. Not because they fear punishment, but because they sense substance. Boundaries don't need to be loud. Sometimes all it takes is no reply, a step back, a quiet exit. That says more than any argument ever could. Now here's the paradox most people miss. The more you try to avoid disrespect, the more you attract it. The more flexible you are, the more they bend you. The more agreeable, the more invisible. because trying to be everything to everyone makes you nothing to yourself. Respect begins the moment you say, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." Not with arrogance, but with inner conviction. And when people feel that, when they see that you're not negotiating your worth, they stop trying to bargain with your value. Let's redefine power. It's not about being louder or smarter or stronger. It's about being still when chaos demands a reaction. It's the power to pause when everyone else panics. It's the calm in the storm, the eye, not the thunder. Real power doesn't need a megaphone. It speaks in calm certainty. Like this: you don't need to argue. You don't need to justify. You don't need to perform. You just exist, unbothered, unshaken, unapologetic. Energy doesn't lie. And when yours shifts from desperation to detachment, everything responds. People listen more when you speak less. They value you more when they sense you don't need to be valued. That's the paradox Machiavelli understood. You don't need to control others. You only need to control yourself. Because when you move with purpose and hold your peace like a weapon, the world pays attention. They feel it in the pauses, in the way you don't explain the obvious, in the way you leave instead of beg. That's not ego. That's sovereignty. People don't follow noise. They follow presence. When your silence becomes more commanding than someone else's shouting, you win without lifting a finger. Because presence, true presence, cannot be faked. It's built in the hours you spend alone, learning who you are, sitting with your own mind, refusing to compromise with chaos. That kind of calm, it spreads, it reshapes rooms. It doesn't ask for attention, it earns it. So here's the truth most never learn. Respect is not something you get, it's something you become. It's not a prize, it's a pattern of how you carry yourself, of what you allow, of where you draw the line. You don't need a crown, you don't need applause, you don't even need words. Because when your presence speaks loud enough, the world listens. So stop explaining, stop chasing, start standing with clarity, with silence, with power, and watch what happens. If this resonated, let us know in the comments. What boundary have you stopped bending for lately?